what a blessing he is, because we do this together. I could never do it alone.
In the golden age of Hollywood, Audrey Hepburn became the very definition of grace. We saw the elegance, the smile, the timeless beauty that seemed almost untouched by the world. But Audrey saw something else. Behind the velvet curtains and flashing lights, she witnessed the private truth of the men everyone else only admired from a distance. To us, they were untouchable legends. To her, they were human, complex, flawed, and quietly revealing who they really were. And one of them would leave a mark she never forgot. In her final years, Audrey didn't speak about their fame. She remembered their character, the moments they never shared with anyone else. Before we begin, tell me, how old were you when you first saw Audrey on screen, and where are you watching from today? The man who saw her first, Gregory Peck. Before the world truly knew her name, before the fame, the awards, and the timeless image we remember today, there was a moment when everything could have gone differently. In 1953, a young and relatively unknown Audrey Hepburn arrived on the set of Roman Holiday. She was elegant, yes, but still unproven. Hollywood had seen many hopeful faces before, but Gregory Peck saw something others hadn't fully recognized yet. Peck was already a major star, respected, established, a man whose presence alone could define a film. Yet from the very beginning, he treated Audrey not as a newcomer, but as an equal. There's a quiet story often told about that film. Originally, Audrey was not meant to receive top billing, but Peck insisted her name appear alongside his, not out of politeness, but conviction. He reportedly told the studio, "You've got to change that. She's going to be a big star." And he was right. But what mattered more to Audrey wasn't the prediction. It was the kindness behind it. On set, Peck was patient, encouraging, never overpowering. For a young actress stepping into a world filled with pressure, that kind of support meant everything. Their chemistry on screen felt natural, almost effortless, but off-screen it was built on something deeper, mutual respect. Years later, Audrey would still speak of Gregory Peck with warmth, not as a legend, but as a man who gave her confidence when she needed it most. And sometimes, the people we admire the most are the ones who believed in us before anyone else did. Dancing with a Legend. Fred Astaire. By the time Audrey Hepburn stepped onto the set of Funny Face, she had already become a rising star. Her elegance was undeniable, her screen presence unmistakable. But this time, the challenge in front of her was something entirely different. She wasn't just acting, she was stepping into the world of Fred Astaire. Astaire was not simply an actor, he was a legend, a performer whose name had become synonymous with perfection in movement, rhythm, and grace. For decades, audiences had watched him glide across the screen as if gravity itself had no hold on him. And now, Audrey was expected to dance beside him. Privately, she was nervous. She had trained in ballet as a child, but dancing with Fred Astaire was something else entirely. It wasn't just about steps or timing. It was about matching a standard that few in history had ever reached. But Astaire never made her feel small. Instead, he did something Audrey would never forget. He guided her gently, patiently, never rushing her, never demanding more than she could give in the moment. He understood that her strength wasn't in technical perfection, but in natural grace. And that was enough. As filming progressed, something remarkable happened. Audrey didn't try to become Fred Astaire. She remained herself. Their performances together carried a unique charm, not because they were identical in style, but because they complemented each other. His precision, her softness, his experience, her freshness. Years later, Audrey would still speak of him with deep admiration, not just as a performer, but as a man who made the impossible feel within reach. And sometimes, the people we admire most are the ones who help us believe we belong in places we once feared we didn't. Charm she couldn't resist. Cary Grant. By the early 1960s, Audrey Hepburn was no longer the uncertain newcomer she had once been. She had become a global icon, admired, respected, and instantly recognizable. Yet even at the height of her fame, there were still certain names in Hollywood that carried a different kind of weight. Cary Grant was one of them. When Audrey was cast alongside him in Charade, it wasn't just another role. It was an opportunity to share the screen with one of the most effortlessly charismatic actors the industry had ever known. But behind the scenes, there was hesitation. Grant, nearly 25 years older than Audrey, initially felt uncertain about the pairing. He worried the age difference might feel uncomfortable on screen. In fact, he reportedly tried to adjust the script so that Audrey's character would pursue him rather than the other way around. Audrey, however, saw something else entirely. She admired his precision, his timing, the way he could deliver a line with both humor and subtle depth at the same time. Nothing about his performance ever felt forced. It was all instinct, refined over years of experience. And once filming began, whatever doubts existed quickly disappeared. Their chemistry was undeniable, light, playful, and filled with an elegance that felt natural rather than constructed. Cary Grant didn't overpower a scene. He elevated it. And in doing so, he brought out a different energy in Audrey as well. She once described working with him as both joyful and inspiring. Not because he was a legend, but because he made everything look so easy. And sometimes, the people we admire most are the ones who remind us that true mastery doesn't need to announce itself. Respect beyond the tension. Humphrey Bogart. By 1954, Audrey Hepburn was beginning to find her place in Hollywood. Her success in Roman Holiday had introduced her to the world, but with recognition came new challenges, especially when sharing the screen with established giants. One of those giants was Humphrey Bogart. When Audrey was cast in Sabrina, she stepped into a production surrounded by strong personalities. Bogart, already a towering figure in cinema, was known for his intensity both on and off the screen. His reputation carried weight, and his presence on set was impossible to ignore. But this was not a simple collaboration. Behind the scenes, tensions quietly surfaced. Bogart reportedly had reservations about the film and its direction. At times, his frustration seemed to linger in the atmosphere, creating a distance that Audrey could not ignore. For a young actress still navigating Hollywood, it could have been overwhelming. But Audrey responded in her own way. She remained calm, professional, composed. She did not challenge the tension. She absorbed it, moved through it, and continued to deliver a performance that would become one of the most memorable of her career. And perhaps that is where her admiration for Bogart quietly took shape. Because beyond the difficulty, she recognized something deeper: commitment. Bogart approached his craft with seriousness. He did not treat scenes lightly. Every moment mattered. Every line carried weight. Even when the environment felt strained, his dedication never disappeared. Audrey understood that. She may not have shared his intensity, but she respected it. And sometimes, admiration is not born from ease or comfort, but from witnessing the discipline it takes to carry greatness, even when it isn't gentle. The quiet strength she admired. Gary Cooper. By the time Audrey Hepburn began working on Love in the Afternoon, she had already shared the screen with some of Hollywood's most commanding personalities. Each experience had shaped her in different ways, some through warmth, others through challenge. But Gary Cooper was different. There was no intensity that filled the room, no overwhelming presence that demanded attention. Instead, Cooper carried something far quieter: stillness. He was a man of few words, both on and off the screen. His performances were never exaggerated, never forced. He didn't need grand gestures to be understood. A glance, a pause, a simple shift in tone. That was enough. For Audrey, this was something deeply admirable. In a world where many actors competed for attention, Cooper seemed to step back from it. He allowed moments to breathe. He trusted silence in a way few performers did, and that silence spoke volumes. Their time together on set was calm, almost effortless. There were no dramatic tensions, no loud personalities clashing behind the scenes. Instead, there was a quiet rhythm to their work, one built on mutual respect rather than constant validation. Audrey responded naturally to that energy. Her performance beside Cooper felt softer, more grounded. She didn't need to reach for emotion. It arrived on its own. And in many ways, that reflected the kind of actor she admired most. Not the loudest, but the most honest. Years later, Audrey would reflect on those who influenced her, and Gary Cooper's name remained among them. Not because he demanded attention, but because he never needed to. And sometimes, the people we admire the most are the ones who prove that true strength doesn't have to be seen to be felt. The perfectionist she respected, Rex Harrison. By the time Audrey Hepburn stepped into My Fair Lady, she was no longer discovering Hollywood. She had become one of its defining faces. Yet even at that stage of her career, certain collaborations still brought new challenges. Working with Rex Harrison was one of them. Harrison was known for his precision, not just in performance, but in every detail surrounding it. Timing, delivery, posture. Nothing was left to chance. He approached acting almost like a discipline, something to be controlled and refined until it reached perfection. For Audrey, this created a very different kind of environment. Unlike the warmth of Gregory Peck or the gentleness of Fred Astaire, Harrison's presence demanded focus. There was little room for uncertainty. Every scene required clarity, intention, and control. And Audrey understood that. Though the production itself carried its share of pressures, she never lost sight of what Harrison brought to the film. His command of dialogue, his ability to move seamlessly between speech and rhythm, and his complete confidence in his craft made him impossible to ignore. He did not adapt to the moment. He shaped it. Audrey, in turn, rose to meet that standard. She matched his discipline with her own dedication, delivering a performance filled with elegance, transformation, and emotional depth. But what stayed with her was not just the film, it was the lesson. That greatness is not always effortless. Sometimes it is built through control, repetition, and an unwavering commitment to getting every detail right. And sometimes, the people we admire the most are the ones who remind us that excellence is never accidental. The life of Audrey Hepburn reminds us that behind every graceful performance, there are quiet influences shaping the journey. From kindness to discipline, from charm to quiet strength. Each of these men left something behind. Not just memories, but lessons she carried with her through the years. Because admiration is not about fame. It is about what we recognize in others and what it brings out in ourselves. And perhaps that is why these 6 names stayed with her. If you enjoy stories like this, timeless, reflective, and rooted in real moments, consider subscribing. There are many more stories waiting to be remembered.